So our next joint is going to be called the Arthrosis, or Cartilaginous, and it's bones linked together with cartilage. That sort of makes sense. It's cartilaginous held together with cartilage. Cartilage is flexible, so there's going to be some slight movement. And there's going to be two types that we're going to discuss. The symphysis, and there's going to be the synchondrosis. Synchondrosis is going to be the type that's in between your spine. So if we look at the two, you could see that with the symphysis, there's going to be little areas that allow for very little or no movement. This is going to be assuming that this person is not pregnant. There's going to be no movement between the two cocci bones, sticking them together. You're also going to see a little bit as those discs, those cartilagic discs in between the vertebra, and they're going to hold them together, giving them a little bit of flexibility, but not enough that they can move around too much. The other type, the synchondrosis, is basically where we see that epiphyseal plate. Remember that growth plate? As the bone is growing, that's held together with that cartilage, and as the person gets older, eventually just fuses. And that's held together with hyaline cartilage. And over here, we'll see that between our sternum and our first rib, there's going to be that same sort of hyaline cartilage that holds the two together to make sure that there's a little tiny flexibility, but not a lot. So let's discuss the first one. These are going to be the Synchron Dosis. And this is going to be bones that are joined by hyaline cartilage. It's going to be the first costal cartilage that we saw in the ribs. And it's also, you see it in bony growth in children. That's that epiphyseal plate, that growth plate that we talked about, that as the bone gets bigger, and grows into this area, eventually this just all becomes bone. But here would be the spongy bone. Here's that hollowish bone that we talked about last time. Our next type of cartilaginous joint is going to be the symphysis. These are two bones joined together with this fibro cartilage, like the pubic symphysis, the internal vertebra discs. They're basically designed for slight movement, but not a lot. You would hate to have a lot of movement over here, or a lot of movement over here. We would become more jello-like. We don't want that. Our next one is going to be our bony joints, and these are going to be called our synosis bones. These are fused. So when we're born, they're not completely fused, but when we get older, those fusions become calcified and stuck. So our mandible has two parts in the beginning, and then over time they get fused, and even our temporal bone. The two bones once were separated and are fused by just bone growth. Increased ossification happens with age, so you can tell the left and the right mandibular are sort of there at birth, but they're separated and they start to come together. Left and right frontal bones are present at birth, and they again fuse over time. The diaphysis and the epiphysis and the long bones of adults, they of course grow over time and then eventually go away. And then we'll discuss our synovial joints next.